So I think probably, you can't have a discussion about lithium without even maybe referencing Tesla and what they continue to do in the electric vehicle space. My view is that in 2020, probably the biggest event of the year in the lithium space was Tesla's Battery Day, where they effectively came out and said, look, we're so bullish on the opportunity around vehicle electrification and energy storage that gigawatt hour scale factories are no longer going to be enough or no longer going to be big enough. So they're thinking about things with respect in terms of terawatt hour scale. And so that has three major implications. Number one, as you can see here, this idea of technology driven cost deflation in batteries, and we'll look at some data here in a moment, is set to continue. May not accelerate necessarily because there's no Moore's law with batteries, but nevertheless, that is clearly going to continue when you combine scale and technological advancement. Number two, obviously, if you're going to be building more capacity, you're going to need more raw materials, okay? And so depending upon your views on EV penetration and energy storage deployment, my view is that by the middle of this decade, we'll need 4 times the lithium, double the cobalt, and then triple the copper and triple the nickel that is currently used in the battery business today. So really, really exciting 5 years, I think, ahead of us. Look, this whole electrification thesis and lithium and cobalt and graphite's role in it really boils down to what I call the 4 Ds: decarbonization, decoupling, deflation, and demand. Those are really going to drive not just lithium demand, but battery metals demand to really unprecedented heights, I think, over the next decade. Again, just to reiterate my views on lithium, I think that, it's fair to say that maybe not by 2025, but certainly by 2026, this market is going to triple in size to over 1 million tons of demand that's spread across primarily lithium carbonate and lithium hydroxide. And then I would argue the last half of this decade, it's actually going to be really, really exciting, where I think the lithium demand doubles again to almost 2 million tons per year by 2030. So
I know that by personal experience, many companies that are working same as us in the trading business are trying to stay very traditional, very focused on the traditional way that they have to trade their commodities on the physical market. But the fact of digitalizing does not mean necessarily that we have to change our old style, our way to do business. That can be only an opportunity to make it better, to improve it, and to kind of build some synergy between the digital and the traditional, so without losing the soul of the business itself. So digitalizing itself does not have to be a threat for the traditional way of trading the metals and of procuring the metals. Obviously, there are some of the main things, such as human relationships, human presence, which we cannot substitute, and we are going to see how actually we can achieve that by at the same time digitalizing. It is probably something that is going to happen slowly in the next years, but at the same time, I think that the pandemic has kind of fast forwarded this process, because we've been forced to really do everything online. Giving traders or giving procurement managers the possibility to use a system that gives you access to a lot of information all at once, to a broad network, and to a lot of benefits that come from automating the process of researching a product or something on the market, then this can be beneficial, because what is important is that there is a human presence behind, and there is somebody taking care of the whole negotiation for each business opportunity. That doesn't mean that we are changing what we used to do before. If a research of a trader, of a manager, is usually going to take half a day for phone calls, for emails, and so on, digitalizing can mean that in just one click or a few clicks, you can reach a wider network, you can reach more contacts, and so on, and maximize your efficiency. So you allow yourself to perform research in a fraction of the usual time. But at the same time, the transaction, the negotiation, everything that's happening is going to ultimately happen the same way as it always used to be.
So this aluminium, as I earlier also told, that aluminium is a metal of future. and this is the metal of future because of its certain properties, like it is very light metal and having very good conductivity and properties like durability and uh, other properties like corrosion resistivity. So this makes aluminum as a metal of choice for the future. And particularly, I just want to focus a little bit on the past of the aluminum industry in India. The current the per capita consumption of aluminum extrusion in the world is something around 3 kg. However, in India, the consumption of aluminum extrusion is maybe only 50 grams and so. So it is not very much, as far as this aluminum extrusion consumption is concerned. But in the last 10 years, we have seen that ample opportunities come into the Indian industries for the aluminum extrusion, and the compound annual growth we have seen something around 7% in the last 10 years. Working on aluminum as a choice of metal, I mean, in place of lithium in future to come, because of certain reason. Lithium is also having very, 3 times more energy density rather than the lithium, because it can generate 3 electrons from single ions. So that is one of the key properties of aluminum that make the aluminum the future choice of the battery manufacturing. Not only this, in aluminum extrusion, nowadays we have seen a lot of inquiries is coming for the battery enclosures. So this battery enclosure is particularly manufacturing or making in aluminum extrusion. And because of certain policies like scrappage policies, recyclability, the India is one of the hot market for battery manufacturing. So that is why I mean, I'm particularly considering that India is one of the key market for battery manufacturing and aluminum extrusion potential.
One of the most important questions for me these days, do we have any commodity market bubbles, and how to identify them? And for example, can we say that copper is a financial asset or probably a commodity market bubble? Why I'm curious, why I think this question is truly important, because I'm following copper very closely for 5 years. And clearly 2020 was a unique period, unique in terms of volatility. Do you remember March 2020 when copper price touched $4,370 per ton? And in 9 months period, we saw a 90% growth in price, which was only partly driven by fundamentals. It's my view. But mainly we saw that market sentiment, speculative market sentiment did this rally. And the dynamic of copper as a financial asset was very comparable with equity or high-risk instrument. What we see and what we are discussing with our trading desk is that the large macro funds are playing the long game when it comes both to copper and aluminum. As energy transition will be clearly positive for both metals. What is more important, there are statistics from China that China is building up their own inventories, and this approximately 1.4 million tons, including 600 tons in state reserve fund. So China may support fundamentally demand on the market. Probably it would continue in 2021.